forever. So this is a very baffling question for those people actually who do not believe in God and do not believe in the hereafter, and they do not believe that they will get resurrected when all is over, and we have to actually be present for what we have done during this lifetime. And previously, many years ago, I had this feeling as well, and I was like um, always wondering what would happen after this life. But I myself, I felt like there was something wrong with the things that we were doing, as a born Muslim and a born in a family of Shiite people. We were told to believe in this, believe in that. We have to ask for intercession from imams and so on and so forth. But I felt like there is something wrong with that because I felt like those people are dead. So I came to this point of like disbelieving in those things, but I didn't know what was the right way. And thank God, our Lord actually guided me and guided my wife on this path. And not only that, I found a new family and a family of actually submitters, and that's really beautiful. So I totally get this question myself: why those people who disbelieve in God say this thing? It is completely obvious to us that there is a life after this because we know the whole story. But to those people, they don't believe in it. They don't believe that when they are turned into dust, they think that they are this body, but it is not the case. It is not only this body. We are something bigger than this, different than this. And this is just like a garment that we will shed. And eventually we will get recreated again. So those who disbelieve will be those who incur actually hell for themselves, wherein they abide forever. They challenge you to bring doom upon them rather than turning righteous. Sufficient precedents have been set for them in the past. Indeed, your Lord is full of forgiveness towards the people in spite of their transgressions, and your Lord is also strict in enforcing retribution. So it is really actually interesting that the people who disbelieve always challenge, the believers. Especially in this case, I think it refers to messenger or prophets. I think somebody's mic is on. Um, actually, they challenge these people, messengers and prophets, and then they, instead of turning righteous, they are really inviting doom upon themselves, and that's really interesting. And from the previous verse, we understand that, well, when they don't believe in the hereafter and when they don't believe in God, they are very resistant to the fact of becoming righteous and believing in God, and that's quite understandable. Sufficient precedents have been set for them in the past. Indeed, your Lord is full of forgiveness towards the people in spite of their transgressions, and your Lord is also strict in enforcing retribution. Those who disbelieve say, if only a miracle could come down to him from his Lord, we will then believe. And you're simply a warner. Every community receives a guiding teacher. So from this part, we understand that these people, these disbelievers say that if we can only see one miracle, then we will believe. But interestingly enough, if we go through Quran, we see that in different places, many miracles came with different prophets to different people, but still they didn't heed. I mean, and they said that it is obviously magic. For example, for Jesus, son of Mary, um, he actually created from clay the shape of a bird, and by God's leave, uh, blew into it, and it became a live bird, healed the blind, healed the leprous, revived the dead. But what do people say? This is obviously magic. So disbelievers would still say that this is magic. We don't believe. Even if they see miracle right in front of their eyes, they would say that this is obviously magic. Now, in another verse, even if we sent down to them a physical book written on paper and they touched it with their hands, those who disbelieve would have said, this is no more than clever magic. Again, another verse. The leaders among Pharaoh's people said, this is no more than a clever magician. Another verse. They said, no matter what, this is really interesting, no matter what kind of sign you show us to dupe us with your magic, we will not believe. First, they say that this is magic, and then they say that we will not believe. So, this is quite understandable that disbelievers would not believe no matter what you do. So, it is only if they want to be guided and if it is the quality of their soul to be guided, then by God's leave they will be guided, or else they would just resist the guidance. God knows what every female bears and what every womb releases or gains. Everything he does is perfectly measured. This is a very interesting verse where it reminded me of like a sentence in my mother tongue, Farsi, that I don't know whether it exists in other countries or not, but it has given mothers a very high place in the culture. And there's also a saying that says that um, um, heaven belongs to mothers. So this is just like a sentence that is created by people, and that gives like a sort of power to mothers that they mistakenly think that they have created their children and they own them in every way. Especially in the Oriental culture, we see that, and it is not the case. God has created all of us. Mothers were just actually means, or they were like tools, or actually a way of our creation. If God wanted to create us all like Adam or Jesus, he could have done so. But this is the wisdom of God for us to be created like this. But still, we have to have this in mind that it is God who has created everything and knows everything about everything. So that's really interesting. The next one says, the knower of all secrets and declarations, the supreme, the most high. It is the same whether you conceal your thoughts or declare them, or hide in the darkness of the night or act in the daylight. It wouldn't make any difference. God knows everything about us. Shifts of angels take turns staying with each one of you. They are in front of you and behind you. They stay with you and guard you in accordance with God's commands. And that's really at the same time that it is actually relieving. It actually makes you aware of the fact that there are other beings which are watching us in both ways, watching us like protecting us, and at the same time watching everything that we are doing. So we're not alone. If you're alone, you're not alone. You're actually not alone. So that's the point that we should have in mind, that angels are always present with us, and that's by God's command. Then there is this part that says, thus God does not change the condition of any people unless they themselves make the decision to change. And this part, the Arabic part of it, is really beautiful, and I brought it here. It says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. So basically it means thus God does not change the condition of any people unless they themselves make the decision to change. So the first part actually relies on us, that we should want to change, but at the same time, that wanting to change in accordance with is in accordance with God's leave. So basically, we can decide, but at the same time, our decision is made. Like this, the same as the story of Joseph brothers, that they decided to throw Joseph into well instead of killing him. But we know that it was not their decision, it was God's decision. But at the same time, they decided. So this is a very interesting topic to think about, how they decided, but at the same time, the decision has already been made. So that reminds me of the situation which is going on in Muslim countries. So we see that there are many people who are doing salat, they are doing zakat, they are giving zakat, they are doing charity, they are praying to God, they are asking God. Well, why is the situation in Muslim countries like this? We understand from Quran one word: idol worshipping. That's it. So when they don't know that they should only ask God for help in everything that they do. Then what happens is that these crises are happening to them. So if God wills any hardship for any people, no force can stop it, for they have none beside him as Lord and Master. Now, I wanted to say something about like angels here. Um, the reason that we don't see the angels, probably one of the reasons, is that angels are in different dimensions that we have, like that we have present for us to be understood and felt. So we are living in a world of three dimensions. We are living like in a space, and there is length, width, and depth, and there is one dimension of time. So basically, three or four dimensions. But there is something called the string theory, that it is a sort of a model for physics that talks about more dimensions, up to like 10 or 11 dimensions. And it's basically difficult for us to be understood. But if we think about the fact that, like, if you look at the paper, like for example, right now you're looking at your screen, if you only think about length and width, then it would be only two dimensions. So if you think that you're absolutely flat on this screen, then we don't have like depth. So if like a being comes and starts talking to us, we have no way of turning around and seeing that being. So that's the same thing that I feel is the case with actually angels and also demons, the jinns, that we can't, we are not able to see them, but they are present with us. So that's something to have in mind. And another thing about string theory, as I was reading, was that the string theory actually gives us the possibility of uh, as all the possible futures and all the possible pasts. Seeing the possible futures and seeing the possible pasts. This is a little bit of actually very deep scientific theory, and I honestly I don't understand it completely, but based on what we search on the internet, this basically proves the idea that God says that in Quran says يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم. So God can knows the future and also knows the past. Basically knows all the possible futures for us and all the possible pasts for us. And it's a little bit hard for us to understand because we are linear creatures. We are only like going forward in time. We cannot go back in time. And that is what we are, it's a little bit hard for us to understand. But the point of dimension is a really interesting point, and that's why we don't see angels. That's one of the things that I have in mind for like explanation for this. And also another interesting thing was that the messenger of covenant said in one of the Quran studies that when you say mashallah, God will put angels to guard the things for which you say mashallah. For example, for your wife, for your children, for your car, for your house, etc. So it's a really beautiful thing that although we don't see angels, we know that they exist and we believe that they exist. And by saying mashallah, God will put angels for us and the things that we love in our life. By love, I mean like the things that we like, basically. He is the one who shows you the lightning as a source of fear as well as hope, and he initiates the loaded clouds. So lightning on its own is a very interesting phenomenon. So lightning is a large-scale natural spark discharge that occurs within the atmosphere or between the atmosphere and the Earth. So basically between the clouds and between the clouds and the Earth. On discharge, a highly electrically conductive plasma channel is created within the air. And plasma is the fourth state of matter. So we have solid, liquid, gas, and also plasma. And plasma is a gas that is ionized, meaning that it has positive and negative charges. And here it says that plasma channel is created, and when current flows within this channel, it rapidly heats the air up to about 25,000 degrees Celsius. That's a lot. That's really, really high. The lightning channel is an example of terrestrial plasma in action. So the color, the blue-white color of actually lightning is really interesting, and that is actually created because the extremely high temperature generated heat the air molecules to a state of uh, white hot. It's incandescence, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, white hot, such that they emit a vivid white light. So that's the reason for the blue white light that we see from the lightning, and that's really beautiful. But you don't want to be close to that because it is 25,000 degrees Celsius. And the interesting thing about actually is that uh, at about 10 meters out from the channel, actually by vibration of the molecules of air, we hear the sound which is called thunder or ra'd, as is the actually the name of this surah, is created, and we hear that. But since sound travels slower than light, we first see the light and then we hear the thunder, the sound, and that's really beautiful actually. And there's some other information here about it. And what I want to say here is how it is created, okay? So conditions needed for lightning to occur. It is the formation and separation of positive and negative electric charges within the atmosphere that creates the highly intensive electric field needed to support this natural spark discharge that is lightning. The formation of electric charges in the atmosphere is due mainly to the ionization of air molecule by cosmic rays. Cosmic rays are high energy particles such as protons that originate from outside the solar system. On colliding with air molecules, they produce a shower of lighter particles, some of which are charged. Okay, so this is basically what is happening. Lightning is created because of positive charges and negative charges. If it is between clouds, it will be in this way. We see it in the sky sometimes, but since there is like heavy cloud, we're not able to completely see them. But we see them when they are actually hitting the ground, or we see them like formed in the sky but not hitting the ground, and that's because of the different charges that we see. And then the process is really interesting. Little by little, there is something called a stepped leader, which is formed. And then it's about like 50 to 100 meters, sections which are created. And little by little, they built on top of each other until they actually form a bigger lightning. So this is how they are formed. Sometimes we see that they're small. Sometimes we see that they're larger, and it totally depends on how much actually like negative and positive charges are there. And if they want to hit the ground, something even from the ground is created up so that it meets with the charges from the cloud, and then it hits the ground and it makes something really big. And you don't want to be close to that because you will be completely toast. Subhanallah, this is really interesting how they are created. I mean, we are just like here and just reading about this, and we are at awe of how this process happens. And it's really big. And this is what God has created. And we can only say subhanallah. And the next verse says, the thunder praises his glory, and so do the angels. So this basically sound that here is like praising for the glory of God out of reverence for him, for because of actually revering God, we hear this sound. He sends the lightning bolts which strike in accordance with his will, yet they argue about God, though his power is awesome. Yes, if I mean if you talk to disbelievers about this, they say, yeah, this is like a natural process which is happening, okay? And they explain the things that I have already explained, but okay, who created this? Who created the conditions for these things to happen? And that is only God. But they don't believe. They argue about God and they don't believe. Imploring him is the only legitimate supplication, while the idols they implore beside him cannot ever respond. And this is like the theme of Quran, like that we have been talking about in previous chapters as well. That we can only we should only actually implore to God, and don't put any idols beside him. But many people don't know that, and they are unknowingly or knowingly are doing that, unfortunately. Thus they are like those who stretch their hands to the water, but nothing reaches their mouth. For the idolaters, the supplications of the disbelievers are in vain. All creation has submitted to God. To God prostrates everyone in the heavens and the earth, willingly or unwillingly, and so do their shadows in the mornings and the evenings. In the footnote, it says, even the disbelievers prostrate. They cannot, for example, control their heartbeats, their lungs, their peristalsis, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. The shadows are predetermined by God's design of the solar and the lunar orbits and the peculiar shape of the planet Earth, which causes the four seasons. The absolute precision of the Sun Earth relation is proven by the invention of the solar clocks and their shadows. So, there are some topics here that I would like to talk about. So, different parts of the body, whether it belongs to a believer or a disbeliever, are working on their own, and people have no control over them. Heartbeats and lungs, you cannot stop your actually your breathing. It's an involuntary process. You cannot stop your heartbeat, and also you cannot stop the motion, the movement of your actually digestive system. For example, the part that starts from your throat, from your esophagus, and then goes into your stomach and then moves into your intestine. You cannot stop the movement of these muscles. They are involuntary movements. So when you eat something, the food gets digested automatically without you doing anything. And these actually motions are completely involuntary. So who created this situation? Who created this perfect system? The answer is God, but still people don't believe. So there is like so this is about actually our body, and if we want to talk about our body, we can talk like the whole day. But the next point is about the concept of shadow, and it's really interesting. And I found the verses which are related to this. One of them is 16:48. Have they not seen all the things created by God? Their shadows surround them right and left, in total submission to God and willingly. So the shadows are actually submitting to God and willingly. Have you not seen how your Lord designed the shadow? So God designed the shadow. If he willed, he could have made it fixed. Then we would have designed the sun accordingly. So that's really interesting. So if God wanted, he could have done something else. Like, for example, instead of having the shadow move according to its own rules, God could have changed the rules for the shadow and could have made it completely fixed and not moving. And according to the fact that it was fixed, then he would have designed the sun. So there is nothing that cannot be done by God. And in the next verse it says, but we designed it to move slowly. So this was the plan of God. Another verse says, He's the one who rendered the sun radiant and the moon a light, and He designed its phases that you may learn to count the years and to calculate. God did not create all this except for a specific purpose. He explains the revelations for people who know. Most blessed is the one who placed constellations in the sky and placed in it a lamp and a shining moon. So, talking about sun and moon. He designed the moon therein to be a light and placed the sun to be a lamp. And we see that we understand from this verse that moon is a reflector of the sun, the light of the sun, and the sun is actually because it's a star, it creates the light in our solar system. And in our solar system, the only star that exists is the sun. So there was another concept here. It was the concept of solar clocks, and it was really interesting to me to know about how it works. So when the sun rotates about its axis, the sun appears to move across the sky, causing objects to cast shadows. A sundial contains a gnomon or a thin rod. This is that thin rod that casts the shadow onto a platform etched with different times. We see that these are in Roman numerals, like 10, 11, here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And as such, as the sun changes relative positions over the course of a day, the rod shows changes as well, thus reflecting the change in time. And this, I watched the video and it said that this rod here is just like to make the shadow longer, or else the shadow would have like been here because it's close to noon, and it's like the shortest time for the shadow. And then when the sun wants to rise or sets, the shadow becomes longer. And this is really interesting to know how the sundial works. And this is the creation of God, that the shadow is moving slowly, and if God wanted, He could have made it actually fixed, and accordingly, He would have created the sun. But that's not the case. It's otherwise, and we read in Quran, and this is really interesting. So, say, who is the Lord of the heavens and the earth? Say, God. Say, why then do you set up besides Him masters who do not possess any power to benefit or harm even themselves? And that's really interesting. The masters, the idols that people set like beside God, they're not even able to benefit or harm themselves. Like, for example, like aside from dead idols, like for example, prophets and saints, and for those people who say that we believe in God, like Muslims or Christians, there are many people who are setting idols other than prophets and saints. Like, for example, they think that their bank account can save them. They think that their lands, the lands that they own, the real estate that they own can save them. Or they think that their boss can do something for them. But these are all like things or people. They're completely actually um, uh, without any power. They can't do anything for them, not anything good or anything bad. And it has happened so many times to me personally before submission that like we knew that God is doing everything, but at the moment that like the job was done, we would have in our minds said that okay, thank God that this person was there. If this person wasn't there, what would have what would have been done? So that's wrong to think like that, because no matter the case, God put that person in front of you to do the job for you or to make the thing work for you. So we only have to have this idea in our mind that it is only God who possesses the power, and the thing and nothing else can benefit or harm us. This is a really hard concept, but as we work on it little by little in our minds, we understand that yes, this is the actual fact. And if we do that, as much as we believe in God and putting the power in the hands of God only and nothing else, and don't put any sort of idol beside Him, then we see that He showers us with His mercy, and that's really interesting. I myself have felt it, and I'm really happy about this. Say, is the blind the same as the seer? Is darkness the same as the light? Have they found idols beside God who created creations similar to his creations to the point of not distinguishing the two creations? Say God is the creator of all things and he's the one, the supreme. So if we can like just look back at the concept of shadow, how our body involuntarily, the muscles of our like digestive system work and actually pass the food along the digestive system, how our hearts beat, how our lungs work, the creation of negative and positive charges, the creation of lightning and thunder, and so on and so forth, clouds, rain, like the whole world. How people cannot believe in this? And as we discussed earlier, if they do not believe, then they would say that this is like, if they see something that they cannot explain, they would say that this is obviously magic. And at the same time, they would not believe and would say that after we turn into dust, do we get recreated anew? Do will we be resurrected again? So that's what the disbelievers would say. But believers would see these signs and would believe in God, and God is showing us a lot of signs so that we believe and make our belief much stronger as time goes by. All right, so with this, I would stop actually at verse 16, inshallah. And if you have questions and comments.
MashaAllah.
Mashallah, thank you so much. So, what's the verse that we ended at?
Verse 16.
16.
Yes, I finished 16.
Yes, mashallah, I wanted to just add something about the fact that there are other dimensions and there are jinns and angels around us. It's not that easy to keep that in mind. Like it takes some practice because we are used to getting so much engaged in this material world that like we forget and we get worried or we get scared, but we should just keep in mind that as the Quran says and also as the messenger said, we have guards around us and nothing is going to go wrong except the fact it, like if we are in God's kingdom. If not, then there is a possibility that the negative forces or the demons can actually hurt us. And if somebody gets into an accident or something, we can't like generalize that and say that it's because of the demons. Sometimes it could be a test, but usually, I mean, God doesn't advocate any vice or anything negative. He has made sure in this I mean creation that we are safe and we are being guarded. And when you talked about the dimensions, even the scientists are actually, even though they insist on some of them being an atheist, and they are still discovering some of the things. And it's so easy for them to just read the Quran and just have a beautiful life, but they insist on finding scientific, making scientific discoveries and finding different dimensions. It's good, actually, it's by the leave of God that they are coming to these discoveries. But we have the advantage of reading the Quran and simply knowing what's going on around us. MashaAllah.
I was watching one of the actually these debates between uh, those who believe in God and I mean by those who believe in God, idol worshippers. I mean, who are like uh, proposing that Islam is the only way and so on and so forth. And they were talking to one atheist, actually scientist, and one of the things that the scientist said was that if God wanted to guide us, why didn't He like bring a book in English? that's a that's a very like a stupid comment, you know. So like for example, God wanted to send a book to uh, Arabia at that time and like bring a book in English. So uh, how would the people understand? So even the scientists don't want to accept the fact that it's a possibility. They just want to resist it by whatever they have. It's not that like they have some of them, there's no chance for them because they're worshiping their ego so much. They are only relying on the papers that they have published, the books that they have written, the theories that they have in mind, and that's it. That's why they're completely ignorant of the fact that it is a possibility, and they don't want to consider that.
I think we should say like the majority of scientists or most scientists, because we know like Dr. Rashad Khalifa was also a scientist, right? So and God willing, many people here or in the future submitters will also become scientists. So there are not all scientists will say that, right? There's many scientists that
Exactly.
will also promote God.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about the Quran study sessions is that when you listen to them, you hear that the messenger of covenant talks that like many people who are present in the session are actually like doctors. They have PhD in different fields, and that's really interesting. Um, so, of course, not everybody is the same, but yes, many scientists are like that. That they don't want to. Sometimes out of peer pressure, sometimes out of just like uh, worshiping their ego. They don't want to accept that.
Yes, and mashallah, it depends on the plan of God and based on their quality of their soul, how God has panned out their life. And but like generally speaking, academia, it's like a it's not considered a prestigious thing to talk about religion or to do your prayers. Like it's considered not a prestigious thing, and it's like the quality of the souls in this field, I think. But not, of course, Rashad Khalifa. He was first a by the leave of God. He was first a messenger, and then a scientist. So that was the he was a commissioned messenger from the very beginning of the
Mhm.
plan of
Right.
creation to him. Yes.
Right. I mean, so the thing is, like, the reason why academia is not going to like promote religion is because you have, nonsense in the Bible, for example, and nonsense in Islam, and like things like circumcision, right? There's so many of these concepts that are already proven wrong, right? And so these people, these religionists, false religionists, they don't have the logical, scientific, correct explanations, or the truth, for that matter, to to promote it, right? So, from a scientist's perspective, those things are already proven wrong. So they will not, obviously. So it's kind of like uncool to to use religion, or to say you believe in religion, because all of this stuff that they say, right? All this nonsense that they say. But you have scientists that will distance themselves from these organized religions, but they will. I mean, if you look, there are many scientists, for example, who are creationists, right? And they will. There's constant arguments that are going on in the scientific arena between these different scientists. Some that are atheists or or pure evolutionists, and then you have people who are creationists, for example, right? So that is happening. But yeah, I mean, they will not say, like, that Christianity is is a religion, or Islam, for example, right? But there are definitely people that will debate the existence of God, or even when they talk about evolution, they would still accept that evolution. They cannot purely explain the existence of the universe with evolution alone. Yeah, so there's a wide spectrum, I think, of scientists that will support it. But like, what they will not do definitely is support like these organized religions, right? So a lot of people become atheists, and a lot of these scientists will have like a pure scientific explanation for, let's say, why the flood happened during the time of Noah, or things like that, for example, right? But they will not accept these religious dogmas, so, which is understandable in a way. But then you have your fear, knowing that we're in this world, the majority of people are disbelievers. Just like any other profession, you have disbelievers, right? So it's not like scientists are like a special creed of professionals that are against God. I mean, you have, in the same ratio, I mean, you have, for example, people in other professions who believe the same way, right, about God. And if you talk to them, they'll say the same things. But given the fact that most of these scientists are more educated about science, and they have been able to, like, prove that a lot of these things that these people believe in, for example, people who believe literally that God created Earth in 7 days, or 6 days, for example, and rested on the seventh day. I mean, it's nonsense, right? So that's why, like, a lot of them will turn away from religion, and that's why we see them go against it. But then again, like I said, you have your fair share of disbelievers in every profession. So
Yes, and mashallah, if they are supposed to see the message, and they are, I mean, what I've experienced around me, they're either very like willing and they accept it very openly, and or they reject it like right there. And it's like they don't have in between. They're either very much interested, or like that's the reaction I'm getting, because I'm dealing with a lot of them, and I try to like just give the message as much as I can, and I see the reactions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mashallah, they're educated and they actually see the message.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly. And,
difference.
I
Yeah.
think the other thing is, like, as people become more and more educated and they gain more knowledge, people become more and more egotistical as well, right? So, like, wow, I'm so knowledgeable. Knowledge is one thing that drives people's egos to the roof, right? Or they think they're so intelligent, that by their profession that it makes them more intelligent than everyone else. So naturally they have the tendency to become egotistical and not accept anything, right?
Assalamualaikum everyone. I watched like YouTube videos, and I remember that there's a few scientists who are talking about God and the creator of the universes. And that person, there's one or two scientists. They're very I don't remember the names, but they were very very popular scientists, and they believe on that there is some creator. There is some creator who create all this. This is not like only by chance or something like that. So I believe that in my thoughts, if they are not idol worshippers, first of all, because they are not believing in any, because all, if they believe on that, like Suleiman, you guys said, if they believe on those religions, they are all false religions. Even Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all are false religions. So, but they believe on the Creator. If they believe on the Creator, I think they have a better chance than lots of other people who are following these type of traditional religions and going to the wrong ways. So scientists, yes, there's few are definitely they have more. They can see all over the. I'm so sometimes feel like that. How those scientists can like they don't believe on God alone. How come they say these great things? Because they are seeing unbelievable things with their eyes, which normal person should have believed that it cannot be possible without any power, without any big authority. So I when I watched those videos, I was shocked that those persons, those people were talking about like God and Creator, and this somebody like there is a powerful Creator who creates these all things. Maybe they don't believe on other things, but one thing they believe on that there is a Creator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mashallah. If you just read the human anatomy and physiology, I mean, mashallah, I went through that experience. That time I was pretty much atheist, did not believe in anything. But when you read the just human body functions, you come across many, many, many things in the body that is just not an accident. You start questioning yourself. Like even take a, for example, bladder. What is the purpose of a bladder? To keep us clean, because the kidneys are filtering every second, and the urine is accumulating. And then if that was just evolution would not care about what happens to the waste. It will just excrete it. But the bladder in itself, the design, the way God did it, it holds the walls of the bladder. It does not, I mean, because it's sort of acidic and all those things that is in the urine. And then at a certain point, and then when you're full, and then it sends a message and you got to go to the bathroom. Just that one function will make you believe that there's a design. This is a design. It's not an accident. Otherwise, and there's many, many, many things that will actually make you convinced that there's a creator. Otherwise, this you know for yourself that this cannot happen by itself. As we were watching the movie Penguins, I mean, when we eat food, 6 hours later, 4 hours later, it's gone from your stomach. But what happens to the penguins? Then the female lays egg, and they go out for food, and the males carry the egg on their feet in the blizzard snow with a negative Fahrenheit, maybe 40, 50 degrees, such a blizzard condition, and they incubate the egg. While they were out in the sea, they ate so much fish. Otherwise, it would have digested in 4 6 hours. But the way their body got designed, they hold the food for several months. The baby is born, and then the males are feeding from that fish that they ate maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. They're feeding those babies for several more months. I mean, if if you really think about evolution was the case, to develop this system where they can hold the food, by the time it came into existence, the whole penguin population would have evacuated, I mean, finished from the planet Earth, you know. So this whole thing has to be properly placed in every in their system so the penguin population can continue. I mean, there are signs all around us, mashallah.
Ali, you learned that in Happy Feet?
Exactly, exactly. No, no, no. It was a cartoon. This is a cartoon,
Just
but
kidding.
the
I
other
know.
one was actually a documentary movie they made on
Mhm.
penguins. I mean, it's a very
Subhanallah, yeah.
fantastic
It's
movie.
also
Subhanallah.
Planet Earth has a very long one about penguins,
Yeah,
you know,
praise God.
and it's incredible, like, and how God gives them the skills. I mean, look at for example, how God has made the humans reproductive creatures, right? I mean, evolution can never explain that, right? I mean, how the whole mechanism is perfectly calculated by God. I mean, the whole process. I mean, that's why God says, like, if reflect on your own creation.
Yeah, that's how it takes us even our own self. Praise
Yeah.
God.
How can evolution explain one human being, coming from another human being and multiplying? I mean, it's incredible. And I like one of the studies where the Master of the Covenant was talking about evolution. It was like, okay, fine. He says your eyes evolve, but for example, why don't your eyes evolve on your feet?
I mean, just even take the eyes. It has a like 560 or something megapixel camera, and
Mm,
you wake up the minute you open your eyes, they are working perfectly fine. I mean, no matter what kind of advanced camera or cell phone you take, once in a while, it kind of stuck, so you have to restart it, or it doesn't function properly. But we have two eyes; they are like give you 3D image, and as we know that those virtual lenses that you put on your head, they get overheat, because it requires so much processing power to do the 3D system. But we have a 3D eyes; they're working 24/7. There's not a moment when you look around and the image is shaking. You know, you turn around and always live video coming feeding into your
mm,
brain every second. You see the GoPros cameras; they're so famous for, like, when you shake them the image still is one place. Imagine how our lenses don't even move, but when you look around and you're jumping anywhere, but the image doesn't shake. You see the
mm,
very still building in front of you no matter how much you move. I mean,
mm,
these are things to be appreciated. Otherwise, even if you had those cameras, like when you shake a little bit the whole image shakes. I mean, if we have that, just imagine it would be like so hard to even move forward. You
mm,
like walk and slow down, and then because everything is shaking. I
mm.
mean, there's so much to be, glorify God for. Praise God.
Yeah, if you were to build something so advanced, it would not be so compact and efficient and beautiful. I mean, how look at the design and how beautiful God makes these eyes. I mean, also,
Yeah, and their beauty itself. Yeah.
mm, mm,
Yeah, you look at people's eyes, they're like, wow, you had a beautiful eyes.
mm.
Praise God.
I know you've said that a lot.
Yeah, you know me, right?
Right?
Yeah, everybody, I mean, wow, you have a nice eyes.
No, subhanAllah. I mean, that's one of the things that brought me close to God is the first time, when I started reflecting on myself and everything that makes me a human being, and reflecting on other creatures and how, like, look at an ant, for example. You know how a tiny ant is able to be fully autonomous and sees everything, and she has a heart and she has a brain and everything, and yet she's so compact, she doesn't need battery or anything. And God has made it so lightweight and compact and efficient. Scientists could never manufacture anything like that, um, in such a small compact size. And obviously God's creation, nobody can um, replicate it.
I mean, he designs the dragonfly with each eye has 30,000 lens in such a small area. I mean, how can we ever make something like that? Putting 30,000 lenses in such a small area, and all of them are connected to the brain. At
Hmm.
every second, he can see a 3D image, 360
Hmm.
image all around itself.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like the versatility of the different creatures that God has created, right? I mean, not every creature has the same system, right? And there's so much diversity, in all of these creatures. For example, like the owl, he his eyeballs cannot move, right? But he can rotate his head 360 degrees, and so things like that. And I mean, every single creature. I mean, there's so much, right, for humans. God has created all these creatures. I mean, one, He has created them for the food supply, for sure, right? But if God just wanted to create food supply, He could have just also created just one kind of creatures, or maybe with different flavors. But He didn't have to create a whole variety of different range of animals and plants with colors and varieties, and so many advanced systems. But once you study, the more you study them, the more it should make you reverence God. I mean, that's why God says, the most reverent, I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, are among God's worshippers are those who are most knowledgeable. I think I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but I think you know the verse.
Yes, mashallah. What helped me early in the submission was to watch a lot of documentaries on how the lives of bees and ants, and like I'm addicted to nature right now. I mean, I have to watch documentaries, and this gives me a better idea of, I mean, that this is not, we are not the center of the world, and God, how God has designed the whole this spaceship for us. And actually, today I got to learn that the seahorse, how the seahorse gives birth. And it was like, subhanAllah, it was amazing. I'm actually sharing a link with you. Make sure you will watch it, inshallah, after the session.
Also, you reading the verse. Actually, I'm at work, so I'm not sure which verse was that. That where people say that when we turn into dust and bone, do we get resurrected? Well, you see, if that verse, many people don't say that, but it's more of the actions that speaks louder than words. Uh, those people who say by their mouth that we believe in God, but their actions are the one telling do they exactly believe in God. Their mind inside is thinking that yeah, we're gonna die, we're gonna resurrect it, though they don't say it from your mouth, but that's what their minds are thinking. Like 7% of the communication that we do is verbal. 93% of the communication we do that is your action, your gesture, your tone of the voice, and all the other things. So though they don't say it out of their mouth, but if they do really believe that they're gonna get resurrected and they're gonna be standing before their Lord, our Lord, and their life, they would show it with their life. I mean, that's plain simple. As we see in real world, somebody say that I want to do this, then he doesn't do it, that means what do you tell them? You really don't want to do it, because if you want to do it, the pathway is open, you go and do it. You want to go somewhere, you have the car, you can go. So you cannot say that, yeah, I want to do it, but you don't do it, and then at the same time, your inside mind, you actually don't want to do it. That's very simple, and same logic applies for the religion, mashallah.
Yes, mashallah. What I think, Brother Ali, is that what God actually means by that is that, like, people might not say it. Some people might say it, depending on whether they are atheists or not. But actually, there are people who say, I know them, that they say we are not going to be resurrected. They say it out loud, but I mean, there are other people who believe in God, but they are at the same time so much attached to this life. It's like they're not gonna die. It's like they're gonna be eternal here, and that's actually what God means. I believe that they don't, they take this life this first life very seriously, and they don't think about what's going to come. I used to be one of them. I used to believe in God, but at the same time, I was very much attached to this life. I'm going to buy this house, do this, have this job, do this education, and then, I mean, before you know it, it's like it's over. And I see this with my relatives, and especially after COVID, you see how their life is ended like suddenly overnight, and it's like they're very much attached to this life, and they don't think about what's going to come for eternity.
Okay, so I guess are there any other comments or questions, anyone? If not, then God willing, we can conclude our study for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and God willing, our teacher will be Jafet. God bless you all. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.